Well, hey folks, welcome to Solar Cabin Channel. I'm going to talk a little bit about propane heaters, and I live off-grid in a 400 square foot cabin, and this is the heater that I use in my cabin, and I get asked a lot about how I heat my cabin because I'm off-grid. Now this is made by Dynaglow, and this is the 12,000 BTU propane, or what they call LPG or LP liquid propane ventless or vent-free heater. Now, Dynaglow, I've had this one for about 3 years now. Before I got this one, I had another one. It was a very similar unit. I had it for over 10 years. I could have kept using it longer, but I wanted this unit because it's a little bit smaller, and this one has a thermostat in it where my other one didn't. So I'm going to talk about the features on this Dynaglow. First, this is a vent-free furnace. It does not require a vent, so you don't have to have any hole or pipes going out of the wall to vent these. These are used in places where you can heat a small area or up to a larger cabin or home, and they can also be used for emergency and backup heat for grid-tied homes. They do not require any electricity. You can get an optional fan for this if you want to blow out more of the warm air, but you do not need that for these radiant heaters. Now, they make two different types of propane furnaces. They make the vented or the vent-free, and they make a blue flame or a radiant heater. Now, I've used both blue flame and radiant, and I can tell you the radiant heaters are much better for a smaller area and where you want instant heat and you want to heat yourself up really fast. The radiant heaters work much better than the blue flame heaters. Now, how these work is these panels that you can see glowing back here, and this one has two of these panels. They produce a radiant heat. That radiant heat comes out of the front here, and it will heat up any objects that are out in front of it very fast, okay? And this happens to sit about 7 feet away from my couch and daybed over here, so I get heat almost instantly. Now, it does work by convection. There is some heat that comes up out of this because this grid up here is open. Some heat rises up, and that heats the air in the room. Now, a blue flame heater only heats the air. And because of that, it takes longer for you to feel the heat, and it also takes longer to fill up the space because it has to heat up the air in the room, whereas a radiant heater will heat you up, and it also heats up any thermal mass that's inside the area, which is your walls and any other appliances or furniture or anything that you have in your house. It actually heats those up. They absorb the heat and then release the heat later. Now, Dynaglow carries 3 different models. They carry this one, which is a 12,000 BTU. They also carry an 18,000 BTU or a 30,000 BTU. This one here, this 12,000 BTU, it says it's rated up to 300 square feet. I can tell you it will heat a lot more space than that. My cabin is 400 square feet, and this has a control on the top here, which you can set. And I have never had to set that above 3. It goes up to 9. I've never had to set it above 3 to keep my cabin completely warm. I also like this Dynaglow because this comes with a thermostat. That's really important, I think, because that way you don't have to go and turn it on when you want heat and turn it back off when you don't want heat. The thermostat will regulate it, and it keeps the cabin at a very constant temperature here. Never have to worry about it. In fact, sometimes, especially in the daytime, I end up turning it down or turning it completely off because I don't need heat. Now, some people have had concerns about sometimes you get condensation from a propane heater. Let me tell you why that happens. These ventless are not designed to be used in an uninsulated small space like an RV or a camper. They do, as they are burning, and these burn at 99.9% efficient, okay? But they do produce some moisture while they're burning. And if you've got cold walls, cold doors, and cold windows in an uninsulated place, that moisture will hit the cold windows and cold doors and become condensation and can cause problems. So don't use one of these in an RV or camper or an uninsulated shed. If you don't do that, you shouldn't have any problem with condensation. The other thing to be aware of is these do require oxygen, of course, to burn, and so you shouldn't use them above about 5,000 elevation. Above 5,000 elevation, the oxygen levels start to drop down. Now, these do have a low oxygen sensor, so if the oxygen drops too low, they won't work as well, okay? They won't burn as efficient. Now, these burn at 99.9% efficient. Now, I want to explain that means that there's no carbon monoxide produced from them. There's almost no carbon dioxide, which a lot of people are concerned about. And propane is considered a green fuel. The reason is it is a fuel that is not, no one goes out and drills for propane. Propane is a byproduct of natural gas and oil drilling, so no one is out drilling for propane. If they didn't sell it as a fuel, they would have to flare it off, okay? And it burns very, very efficiently. It burns more efficient than natural gas, and it at 99.9% efficient. That's why they can use these without a vent. The vent is actually to expel the excess moisture. If you have a problem with moisture condensation, like in an RV or something like that, then you would want to use a vented unit, okay? These newer units are so efficient that they burn so efficiently, the fuel, 99.9% of the fuel is going to be burned up. There's nothing left, okay? So they are a very efficient producer of heat. The only heat source that produces, that is more efficient is electric heat. Electric heat is 100% efficient. But let me tell you, cost-wise, propane is a lot less expensive than if you was to run the same amount of BTUs in an electric heater. In order to have an electric heater that would produce as many BTUs, the 12,000 BTUs as this did, you would have to have a 3,500 watt electric heater, or consider 250 to 2,000 watt electric heaters. And cost-wise, electricity is not cheap. It would cost you 3 times as much, maybe even 4 times as much, to produce as much heat as this does using an electric heater as it does using propane. Now, some people will wonder, how much is it going to cost me and what do I need for tanks and stuff like that? These small units like this 12,000, I run mine off of a 30-pound tank. That's a standard RV size tank, sometimes called a 7-gallon tank. It's actually 7.1 gallons. We usually call them a 7-gallon tank. This will run just fine off of one of those. They do recommend a 100-pound tank, and if you have one of those, that would probably be better. But it's actually the regulator that controls the pressure, and the pressure in those tanks is the same amount of pressure, whether it's a 100-pound tank or a 30-pound tank. The pressure is still going to be the same. But you want to make sure that you use the regulator that they recommend for these types of heaters, and they talk about that on the listing. Now, some people say, why don't you use wood stoves in your cabin? Well, my cabin's only 400 square feet. If I was to put a wood stove in here, for one thing, it would be too hot, and wood stoves take a lot of care, and you need to stay on top of them, because wood stoves, as we have happen here every year, we have 2 to 3 wood stove fires in houses that burn down houses. Almost every winter, without fail, we'll have 2 or 3 wood stoves fires in houses, and they burn down the houses. And it's usually because the people didn't keep the chimneys clean. They weren't watching them. Sparks can sometimes fly out because people like to open them up and look at the flames. Sparks can fly out. You don't have any of those problems with propane. The only open flame is the pilot light down here, and the other flame is contained along these panels, so there's nothing to jump out. You're not going to catch anything on fire. You still don't want to have anything right directly in front of it that might catch fire. Wood stoves require a lot of space around them because they can get red hot. They can burn the wall behind them or to the sides of them or anything around them. And you can't set a wood stove to turn off at a specific time. So if it gets too hot, you're just too hot in your cabin, okay? And I would not trust a wood stove to leave it if I have, because I run to town, I have to run errands, and I may need to be gone from my cabin for 2 or 3 days. I can set this on low, and I don't worry about it, okay? I know that it's safe, and it's not going to let my water tank freeze or any of my water pipes or anything in here freeze. Plus, propane is a multi-use fuel. I use propane for my on-demand water heater and for my cook stove, which is an RV-style cook stove, and for this furnace. And the cost-wise, this is actually much cheaper here in this area. And nationally right now, propane runs about $2.30 a gallon, okay? And I go through one 30-pound or 7-gallon tank a week, and that is for the furnace, the heater, my OD water heater, and my kitchen RV stove. Okay? That's for all of them for an entire week in winter. It's much less than that in summer. In fact, I hardly use any propane at all in summer. Only in winter, when it's the coldest part of winter, I go through about 7 gallons a week or 1 gallon a day. So it's costing me about $2.25 a day in winter for my propane to completely heat my cabin and do my cooking and run my on-demand water heater. So these are great units. You can get them on Amazon. Dynaglow is the brand that I recommend. Get one with a thermostat. This has a piezo ignition. It has a button on top here that you can push. You hold down the controller, then you push that piezo ignition. That light ignites the pilot light down here. And if though for some reason the battery goes dead, you can still light this with any barbecue lighter or even a fireplace match. You can still light this. Now, one of the reasons I really like this is it requires no electricity. If you want to get the optional fan, the fan can help blow the heat around, but you do not need one of those with one of these radiant heaters. And because it doesn't require any electricity, you can use one of these in an off-grid home like I live in, or you could use it in a grid home and use it as an emergency backup supply, a heat supply, if for some reason the power goes out at your homes. Okay, this will still work. You will still have heat in your homes, which will prevent problems with your family getting cold, but also can prevent frozen pipes and things like that busting in your house in wintertime if the power happens to go out. And just one 30-pound tank will last you a week, longer than that probably if all you're doing is running the heater. Now, you can see the thermostat works. It reached the temperature and now it's shut itself down and just the pilot will stay on. And like I said, during the daytime, I usually don't even need to run this at all. So I turn the pilot off completely and just turn it back on in the evening when I need the heat. Okay, again, that is Dynaglow. Good brand on Amazon. I've used this one for over 3 years. Very happy with it. And I would recommend these for off-grid cabins, and also for emergency backup heat in a grid home. Have a great day, folks.